Hello everyone, welcome back to Sora's YouTube channel for ghost stories. I hope you all have an exciting ghost story listening session today. Today, we will continue with ghost stories submitted by our viewers. For those of you who want to send your ghost stories to Sora, you can send them via Gmail or via the phone number Zalo, currently shown on the screen. If you enjoy the video, please give it a like and subscribe. And don't forget to press the notification bell to receive more stories. Today, Sora will share a thrilling story that happened in Samau. I've titled today's story, The Mystery of the Purple Ao Ba Ba. So what happens in this story? Let's begin. This story was sent by a male viewer. He said his hometown is in a riverine province in the Mekong Delta. At the time, between 2003 and 2007, his hometown was a familiar rural area full of trees and open fields. The houses were sparse, with only one house here and there. The locals, they raised shrimp and fish ponds. For those without land, people would go fishing in the river. Although the viewer didn't mention his exact province, it can be guessed that his hometown might be in Bac Lieu, or perhaps Chamau. He described the scenery in front of his house. There was a small river, and across the river there was a wooden house with a thatched roof. This old-style house was very small, probably only enough for a family of 3 or 4. Everything started with that house. Growing up, he realized that the house across the river from his own was always locked and silent, almost like it had been abandoned for a long time. Occasionally, he asked his father about it. His father then told him a story. That house used to belong to a couple with 2 children, a boy and a girl. But for some reason, whenever the couple and their children lived there, the family members kept falling seriously ill one after another. Whenever one got better, another would get sick, and all the illnesses were severe. At its worst, the daughter's eyes suddenly became red and swollen. Her eyes were red and streaked. When they saw the girl's eyes in that condition, her mother immediately took her to Chore Hospital. Meanwhile, the father stayed at home with the son. A few days later, for some unknown reason, the father also rushed the boy to the hospital. It's unclear what exactly he was sick with. After visiting the hospital, the entire family disappeared. They locked up their house and left it abandoned for years, with no one taking care of it. After the family left, the house remained locked and deserted. The adults in the neighborhood would always warn the local children never to go near that house, especially in the afternoon or around noon. No child was allowed to play there. Behind the house, there was a large yard. Adults told the children that some supernatural beings were in that yard. At the time, the children were very scared, and they believed in these stories, thinking there were spirits or ghosts in the yard. Growing up, the storyteller also never dared to go near the house, only getting scared when adults shared ghost stories about it. But usually, after hearing the stories, the fear would fade the next day. One day, around 4 p.m., some kids in the neighborhood finally got a small ball. After deciding where to play, they chose the backyard of the abandoned house because it was the only suitable space for playing. The group consisted of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. One girl was named Dung, and the other was Mai. Dung liked playing ball with the boys, while Mai preferred to sit by a tree with her doll. So, out of the 6 children, only 5 played ball, and Mai stayed on her own. While playing, one of the kids accidentally kicked the ball. The ball fell into Mr. Nam's water pond. Mr. Nam was the owner of the land, the same land where the couple used to live. Seeing that the couple was poor, Mr. Nam gave them a piece of land to build a house. It wasn't really theirs, but they lived there. When the ball fell into the pond, the 5 children went together to find a stick to retrieve it. While the 5 of them were retrieving the ball, they noticed that Mai, who had been sitting by the tree playing with her doll, was suddenly gone. The 5 assumed that Mai had gone home early and didn't think much about it. They continued playing ball until around 5:30 p.m. At that time, they didn't have watches, but they could hear the afternoon TV show starting, which signaled it was around 5:30, so they decided to go home for dinner. As they were heading home, they noticed that Miss Sao, Mai's mother, was extremely worried. She was calling out, asking, "Mai, why aren't you home yet? Where are you?" It was then that the children realized Mai hadn't gone home at all. Her mother had taken a boat to search for her. Looking back at the tree where she had been playing with her doll, the children saw that she was nowhere to be found. The adults then asked the children where they had been playing in the afternoon. The children explained that they had gone to the backyard of the abandoned house to play ball. Hearing this, the adults were shocked, as they had strictly warned the children not to go near that area. The father then mentioned that Mr. Nam's house had a black dog, so the children should be careful. It was getting close to dusk. One of the children, lying in a nearby shadow to avoid being scolded by their mother, realized that their friend in the neighborhood had gone missing. It was then that Mai's disappearance became clear. They said that the girl had brought the black dog to search, and the dog barked right at the floor. Following the dog, they discovered Mai hiding under the raised floor of the abandoned house. To explain, in your area, the stilt houses are usually built about half a meter high to avoid flooding. Mai was hiding underneath the raised floor of that abandoned house. After finding her, everyone realized she had been scared by a ghost. The kids who had played there that day were all scolded severely by their parents. After that incident, the children's curiosity about the house settled down. A year later, a young man named Kwong came to unlock the house and started living there. When neighbors asked him, he explained that he was a relative of the couple who had lived there before. The house had been abandoned for a long time, so it was in very poor condition. Kwong began repairing it. He replaced the old leaves on the roof with new ones, repaired the wooden boards, and renovated everything. The neighbors also helped him with the repairs. When they removed all the exterior layers, the interior furniture became visible. Inside there wasn't much, just a wardrobe, a bed, and some other furniture, all rusted and worn. Everything looked extremely old, and some items were unrecognizable. At first, the neighbors saw Kwong as a kind and hard-working man. His main job was fishing in the river in front of the house. On days he didn't go fishing, he helped neighbors with chores like harvesting, carrying things, or building embankments. Because of his hard work, your parents liked him. Sometimes they would visit him to have tea and chat. Kwong even gave some money to the kids, around 2,000 to 3,000 VND to spend. However, after a short time, something changed. Kwong's behavior began to shift, and he no longer seemed like the same person. He became rude and aggressive toward everyone. Before, he had always been hard-working and never drank or went out drinking. But during that period, he suddenly stopped working and did nothing but drink every night. He wouldn't go home to sleep and instead would lie down on the porch of your house. It was clear that he was no longer acting normally. Seeing this, the neighbors began to avoid him and stopped talking to him as they used to. Your father then spoke to him, saying, "If you have any problems, tell me. I'll help you. I see that you've been acting strange lately. If you don't tell anyone, you'll face it alone. So whatever you need, tell me and I'll help." Kwong then confided in your father. He explained that for several weeks he had been unable to sleep properly. Whenever he tried to sleep, he felt as if someone was standing outside his door, staring straight at him. Even though he was asleep, he could hear the person's voice, as if they were trying to drive him out. "Get out of my house, or I'll deal with you." When you were small, you secretly overheard this, but didn't understand it. However, you noticed your father's expression change slightly, as if he had anticipated something like this. Following your father's advice, Kwong placed a knife under his pillow before sleeping. After doing this for a short period, the disturbances stopped. He no longer felt anyone trying to chase him out of the house. Despite this, people in the village still disliked him because he continued drinking and disturbing others. On some nights when you stayed up late, it seemed as if he was arguing with someone in the neighboring house, even though he was alone. Since the two houses were separated by a small river, the voices weren't completely clear, but you could hear fragments of conversation. This continued until the Lunar New Year of 2010, the year of the tiger. On New Year's Eve, around 8 or 9 p.m., everyone had already started going to bed because in your family, people sleep early. At that time, the whole family suddenly smelled something like burning resin, similar to burning plastic bags. They searched the house to see if there was an electrical short or something plastic burning. But after checking thoroughly, they couldn't find the source. Still, the strange smell remained. After searching in turns and finding nothing, they eventually went to sleep. While sleeping, the family was suddenly awakened by loud shouting from the river. People were yelling that something was on fire. When they looked toward the river, Kwang's house was burning. Checking the clock, it was only 12:13 a.m., just past New Year's Eve. Some young men from the neighborhood ran over to Kwang's house to help put out the fire. Meanwhile, your father quickly climbed onto the roof to pour water, trying to prevent the fire from spreading. Although the two houses were separated by a small river, sparks were blown across to your roof, which could easily have set your own house on fire, since the houses were made of dried leaves and were very flammable. After the fire was under control, everyone gathered near Kwang's house. Mr. Nam exclaimed, "Oh my, Kwang was inside my house!" Everyone rushed to look for Kwang, but the house had burned extensively. Most of the walls and roof had been destroyed. The women in the neighborhood noticed Kwang inside the burnt remains. He was sitting amid the ashes, clutching a box tightly. No one knew what was inside the box. Your father told him, "Wake up, get out now, or you'll die." After hearing this, Kwang suddenly came to his senses and ran out of the house. By the time everyone had fully extinguished the fire, it was nearly 3 a.m. Your mother stayed home, preparing a pot of porridge for everyone, while Kwang, after the chaos, After leaving that house, Kwang seemed like he was in a daze, as if he had died and come back to life. He didn't know what was happening and would mumble incoherently when asked questions. Strangely, despite lying in the midst of the burning house, he was completely uninjured, not even slightly burned. That was the strangest part of the whole incident. The next morning, Mr. Nam, along with your father, returned to Kwang's burned house to see if there were any valuable items to salvage. When they checked the spot where Kwang had been sitting the previous night, they found a box. Opening it, they discovered a set of clothing, a purple aobaba and black pants. Upon seeing this, the neighbors immediately suspected that something unusual had happened. They invited a local spiritual master to examine the house and the clothing to clarify why the previous couple had abandoned the house. After examining the wreckage and the purple clothing, the master concluded that the house was haunted by the spirit of a young woman who had died after being assaulted. The person who had assaulted her, according to the master, was a member of Kwang's family, not anyone else. The purple aobaba belonged to the deceased girl. Upon hearing this, your father immediately understood who had harmed the girl. He told the master, "I know who did it. The person who assaulted her was Kwang's grandfather." Your father recalled that his own father, your grandfather, had told him the story. Back in 1983-1984, your father, along with some friends and their families, had moved to this area to reclaim land and start a new life. Among these friends was Kwang's grandfather. Accompanying Kwang's grandfather was a young woman named Thảo. She was unmarried at the time. According to your father, your grandmother had noticed that Thảo was capable and resourceful, so she invited her to come to the area to help settle the land and establish a home. This way, they could eventually claim land for themselves. Her resentment persisted, but when Quang's grandfather passed away that year, Thau's anger somewhat eased, since he was dead, and there was nothing more she could do to him. However, the reason her wrath continued intensely was that the talisman remained inside the box with her clothing. Because of this, she could not reincarnate or communicate with anyone, which kept her trapped in anger. As a result, Thau's spirit retaliated against the descendants of the couple who had once lived in that house, the family of Quang's grandfather. She caused sickness and misfortune, forcing them to leave the house. She even tried to burn down the house to kill Quang in the fire. Once the story was fully revealed, the spiritual master took action to pacify Thau's spirit. He brought the box, the clothing, and the talisman to the temple, where rituals were performed to calm her and allow her to reincarnate peacefully. Since then, the neighborhood became less fearful. People no longer felt the chills or unease when passing by the house, and everything became peaceful again. However, Quang himself seemed mentally affected after the incident. He began talking to himself, muttering names repeatedly. When the older villagers were asked about these names, they realized that they were the names of the people involved in Thau's death, including those who helped Quang's grandfather. The story also explained why Quang's descendants had to move elsewhere. After the grandfather's death, your father sold the land to Mr. Nam, who then allowed the family of the couple to live there temporarily and build the house. That, in short, is the story you sent to share with us. This story carries a very meaningful message. As Dewey has often said, spiritual matters are a realm that is very difficult to explain. Even modern science has yet to fully understand it. So when you hear this story, or other similar stories, it's okay if you don't believe them. No one is stopping you. However, not believing in something doesn't mean you should neglect spiritual awareness. Being cautious is always better than facing consequences that could be unpredictable. For me, even now, I still vividly remember the image of that burning house from back then. I was only 9 or 10 years old, but that memory is unforgettable. The core lesson of this story is that one reaps what one sows. Evil deeds in one life will have consequences in the next or even generations later. As the saying goes, if the father eats salty, the son will be thirsty. In other words, the results of past actions inevitably affect the future, and that concludes this meaningful and thrilling story. Before we end, don't forget to like and subscribe to Sora's YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the story, feel free to leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Stay tuned for more exciting stories in the upcoming episodes. Goodbye, everyone.